There have been question marks over the Manchester United midfield for a long time now. However, against Liverpool, Ugarte Mainoo and Manuel Ugarte may have proven that they can be the perfect solution for Ruben Amorims in the big games. Now, why did I specify in the big games? Well, that's because in these matches, Ruben Amorims takes a slightly different approach. He is a little bit more pragmatic. From a defensive point of view, we play in more of a 5-4-1, which gets our players really close to each other in the middle of the park, and then on the ball, we are much more patient than what we have been under other managers. And again, that gives our players to get into the 3-2-5 shape as we look to control the ball. But why are Ugarte Mainoo and Ugarte actually so important to that? Well, I'll tell you what, if you quickly subscribe to the channel using that button down below, then I'll tell you. So I want to start off by looking at things from a defensive point of view, because ultimately, if you want to control a big game, you have to be able to defend. And I think coming into the match, there were a lot of worries about Manchester United being too passive, too open at times as well, and it being too easy for Liverpool to play through us. However, that simply was not the case. One, because Ruben Amorims set us up really well. He put us into the 5-4-1 shape, which gets our players really close to each other like this, and it reduces the gaps between players. But also because Ugarte Mainoo and Ugarte had a really good game in midfield. And one of the things that they done particularly well was played extremely close to each other. If you look at the matchups in midfield, Mainoo and Ugarte versus Curtis Jones, Gravenberch and McAllister, it looks like a bit of a mismatch. For a start, Liverpool have too many players, but also physically they have the more dominant individuals. What was the solution for that? Well, it was for our two midfielders to almost play as one midfielder at times and really hunt together. So anytime the ball was coming into midfield into someone like Curtis Jones, Ugarte would be there snapping into the tackle, but you best believe Ugarte Mainoo was right next to him as well. And there were plenty of scenarios of this. You can see it here. Curtis Jones has the ball in midfield and both of our players are right on top of him. Look how close these guys are. They are almost marking each other. They are playing so close to each other. The proximity is incredibly tight, and Ugarte goes in for that first tackle, doesn't quite win it, but that doesn't matter because Ugarte Mainoo is there to help him out. Between them, they are able to tackle the player. It's really good defensive work, and Ugarte Mainoo carries the ball forward. Also, in a situation like this, over on the other side of the pitch, again, our two midfielders are really close together. So as Manuel Ugarte goes into the first tackle, he sort of battles with the Liverpool player. These two are proper having a scrap and really going at it. And then it's almost quite amusing. Ugarte Mainoo just walked in and went, all right, well, you guys are fighting. I'll just take the ball. And again, the two of them worked really well together because they were so close to each other all the time. Now, as a result of playing so close to each other in the midfield, they were also able to sort of bail each other out at times. So, for example, if Ugarte Mainoo was beaten too easily on the dribble, he tries to go for the tackle but gets beaten, then Ugarte was there to sweep up for him. Or, let's say Manchester United are on the ball, and Ugarte gives it away loosely in the midfield, Ugarte Mainoo was there to make up for it, to try and put the tackle in and stop Liverpool from transitioning. This is why they worked so well as a pair, because Ruben Amorims put us in a system where their players were in close proximity, so the spaces that our two midfielders had to cover were relatively small. This meant that they could sort of jump about into these challenges. They could get involved. They actually both had 4 tackles each in this match, more than anyone else on the pitch. And this highlights the fact that they were doing these battles together. And again, of course, we have examples of the two of them helping each other out. You can see Ugarte Mainoo here tries to play the ball out wide, but it's not a very good pass. And Cody Gakpo intercepts and is ready to transition, or at least he would have been if there wasn't a man called Ugarte nearly taking his life from him, but really covering for Ugarte Mainoo. He makes up for the Mainoo mistake. But we also saw the flip side of this as well. For example, in a different move, Gakpo is carrying the ball forward, Ugarte goes into the tackle, is too aggressive, is wrong-footed and beaten, but it doesn't matter because Ugarte Mainoo is there to help out. He comes in for the big slide tackle to win the ball. So again, because the two of them are so close to each other, it means that they can almost make up for each other's weaknesses, each other's errors, if you like. Now, in terms of in the long term, it will need to change. They will need to be able to play almost more independently at times. But in this particular match, defensively, it just really worked. Now, not only did this work for United in terms of the defensive side of the game, but also on the ball as well. And the reason for that, again, is partly because of how Ruben Amorims had us set up, but also because of the player nature of the two in midfield. So we'll start off with the setup and the idea behind the team. We know that Ruben Amorims likes his side to be patient. We will often win the ball back and actually have a moment where we can transition, but Ruben Amorims will often say, let's not do that, let's slow it down a little bit, let's protect the ball, and get into our shape, and that shape very often looks like the 3-2-5 formation. Now again, we know in this shape, United get overloads in key areas of the pitch. We've got 5 players building up deep, which is good for us. We've got potentially up to 4 players in the midfield, but also we can attack with the front 5. So Ruben Amorims wants us to try and slow down and protect the ball. Well, these two were absolutely perfect for that. Now, the first thing is, again, the fact that our players are close to each other. That is very, very important here. If there were big spaces to cover, these two wouldn't be up for it. But when they are shuttling 4 or 5 yards with the ball, they're absolutely perfect. And the first thing that they done particularly well was they protected the ball. And that's very, very important for Manchester United, particularly away at Liverpool, where the crowd, the intensity, the high press from Liverpool really combines into a hectic environment. It's very difficult to play in. What you need in those moments is players that can take the ball and look after it. And these two done that in moments, to be honest, absolutely perfectly. And the way they did this was by getting their body across the opponent. Situation like this, a slightly loose ball in the midfield, Ugarte Mainoo putting a real emphasis on getting his body across, so he is between the ball and the opponent. You would think typically in this battle, Curtis Jones is the bigger, stronger player, so he should win this situation. But because Ugarte is intelligent, he gets himself across Curtis Jones, he uses his arm to keep him away. It means that he can protect the ball. And again, his whole focus the whole time is to make sure he is between the ball and the opposition. He does it very well and keeps the ball for Manchester United. We can also see it from Ugarte as well, again against Curtis Jones. Curtis Jones, again, taller, slightly stronger, perhaps slightly more athletic player. But because Ugarte is using his body in an intelligent way, getting himself between the ball and the opponent, he is able to keep it. And again, what Ugarte is starting to do, and this was a criticism of mine in the summer, is he is starting to use his arms a bit better. He's starting to use his upper body, getting his arm across the opponent. And what that does is it makes it very, very difficult to tackle him, because the opponent physically can't run through your arm. If it is stiff, if it is solid, it's very difficult to move through. And again, it allows someone like Ugarte to slow the game down and keep the ball for Manchester United. Now, this idea of keeping the ball was also seen in their passing as well. We had 2 midfielders who, of course, failed some passes. Kobe was a little bit loose in moments, but generally speaking, they looked to keep the ball. And you can see in both of their successful pass maps, they did this by playing a very basic style of football, often moving out wide into safer areas, but they were playing simple, short passes. But again, that's exactly what Ruben Amorims needed. Now, when you play with 2 sort of retention-based midfielders in the middle of the park, there is always one concern. What if we're a little bit too stale? What if it's all too sideways and we never really progress the ball? Well, actually, Ugarte and Ugarte Mainoo didn't have that issue in this game, and that's because they showed brilliant low centre of gravity, brilliant agility, and a confidence on the ball. And I think a lot of that confidence comes from the fact that they had already completed their passes, that they had protected the ball well, and that gives them the psychological foundation to be a little bit more audacious with what they're trying on the ball at times, and we saw that in this game. There were moments where, again, the Liverpool pressure is there, the Anfield crowd is right behind them, trying to make it very difficult to play in. But in these moments, Ugarte and Mainoo were very, very intelligent. Previously, they were holding off the opponent and playing a basic game. As the game went on, they started dropping a shoulder, trying to spin past players, knock the ball between 2 and then burst into that space. And actually, as the game went on, they were phenomenal in doing this. And the Liverpool midfield kind of couldn't get close to them. In a situation like this, Ugarte initially looks like he's playing safe. He's facing his own goal and moving in that direction. And the Liverpool players can see that. Curtis Jones and Gakpo both decide to gamble forward because it looks like Ugarte is playing backwards, so they want to kind of follow the direction of the pass. However, what Ugarte does at the last moment is shows that low centre of gravity, the ability to turn, to drop the shoulder. He plants his left leg and then spins to the right into this little bit of space here. And again, look at all the space he's got now. It's really good play from Ugarte. And in terms of allowing United to move the ball forward, we can see that he's taken 4 Liverpool players out of the game now. And if you can now get your head up and play a switch, suddenly we have an option on the far side. So it's not necessarily a progressive action in itself, but it creates the possibility and the opportunity for a progressive pass to follow. Ugarte Mainoo, of course, is a player who does something very similar. We know that this guy is evasive in midfield. He loves a drop of the shoulder. He loves to move past someone. And again, here, it's just brilliant. Initially, he's in a physical battle. This is genuine physical contact. And Liverpool feel as though they've got him exactly where they want him. McAllister comes charging in because Ugarte Mainoo is in a really difficult situation. Mainoo sort of shapes up as though he is going infield. McAllister gambles to go press him. But what Ugarte does is he drops and chops, is how I would describe it. So what he's going to do is he's going to chop the ball in a different direction and then drop his body to go with it. It's really subtle play, and what it does is it completely changes the tempo, it changes the direction, and it creates a lot of space for him. You can see it in this moment here. His body drops. Look at those knees. They are straight away bent. He gets low to the ground and chops the ball in a different direction. And again, when he's moving in these positions, he is such a good player. United haven't had a player that can do this regularly, apart from Paul Pogba, I would say, for a lot of years now. But Kobbie is so good in these areas and eventually draws the foul from Gravenberch. But it's brilliant play in midfield. And again, it gave United the foundation to keep moving forward. Now, of course, whilst the intent for Ruben Amorims and his men was to keep the ball and slow it down and slowly progress, there were inevitably moments in this game where Liverpool would attack, really sustain attacks, put Manchester United on the back foot, but we could win the ball in those moments, as we've seen already, and then potentially transition. However, if you actually look at this Manchester United team, we don't immediately have a lot of transitioning threat. We've got Højlund, who is of course a good runner, but Bruno Fernandes isn't a powerful ball carrier. Ahmad is a good dribbler, but again, lacks power in transition. And we don't really have any natural width, because Mazraoui and Dalot are not there initially, because they're in a deeper position. This therefore meant that there was a lot of pressure on our two midfielders. When we received the ball, after winning it back in these positions here, we didn't have an immediate pass on. We weren't able to quickly pass our way out from the back, or send a long ball into the channel, because we didn't have the players to hit. This meant that Ugarte and Mainoo had to be very, very good, again with their first touch, with their ball protection, but also progressively carrying the ball. Now, these two are not elite athletes. They are not players that can drive 20, 30 yards with the ball at high pace, using strength, driving through the pitch. They can't really do that. But again, I'm going to use the term short spaces. Ruben Amorims has the United players close to each other, so when you win the ball back, you may not be able to carry 30 yards, but you don't need to. You actually just need to carry 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 yards to gain a little bit of ground, buy a bit of time for your teammates to get involved, and then you can transition. And again, both of them done this brilliantly. And this is what I would say a lot about this performance. A lot of the stuff that they did so well was both of them doing it. You can see it in a situation like this. United have got a lot of men behind the ball. Liverpool are on top in this moment. But Ugarte Mainoo wins the ball back here. Now, look how deep those United players are. There is not an immediate transitioning threat. We can't lump this ball forward. This was actually just after Ugarte got injured and he ran back on the pitch. But there isn't an easy pass for Mainoo here. There isn't someone he can lump this in behind to, which means if United are to have any sort of transitioning threat here, you're going to have to carry the ball for a few yards to wait for your teammates to get involved. Højlund on this occasion was deep because of the injury, but Kobbie does it really, really well. He carries over those first few yards. This is what the two of them bring in midfield. Maybe not 40-yard carries, but just these little bursts, and it buys time for the runners to get around you. You can see Højlund now on the overlap, Bruno Fernandes in the middle of the pitch, Ahmad is running down the bottom as well. It's really good from Kobbie. It just buys us a little bit of time while still making sure that we are progressing in the counter-attack. And Ugarte done something similar. Again, United are in a very, very deep position here. A lot of players behind the ball, quite a passive shape. Liverpool are on top. And when you win the ball back, you have no one to immediately pass to because there's no one up there, but because we're so deep. But again, Ugarte does good work here. He himself takes the ball on and carries it. He carries it 10 yards or so. And it's just this short carry which buys enough time for Ahmad to eventually get round him. And also we can see Højlund joining the attack as well. This again is because of the good work of our midfield too. In the long term, do I think they are perfect for Manchester United? Probably not. I think when you play against a low block, for example, they lack the line breaking ability. They're not the most creative midfielders in terms of their passing. But in these big games, where you need defensive work rate, defensive intensity, snappy tackles, and of course also ball retention, technical ability and ball carrying, I actually think they make a really, really good duo, and I really enjoyed their performance in this game. Let me know if you did as well in the comments down below. In terms of today, we're actually finished there because I think that is everything I want to cover. If you have enjoyed the video, leave a like on it, leave a comment, and also please do subscribe to the channel. It would be greatly, greatly appreciated. But apart from that, we are finished. So thank you guys very much for watching. Hope you have enjoyed it. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.